Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're having a wonderful day. Today's video is about Neville's favorite technique, which is a subconscious mind technique, meaning we're impressing the subconscious mind with the state of already having received our desire and then falling asleep in that state. This is also often referred to as state akin to sleep technique or SATs, and I'm going to explain in this video the very basics and the most important things to pay attention to. Before I dive in, please subscribe to my channel if you want to support it. Click on the bell icon, click on the like button, and please do leave a comment if you are feeling chatty and generous or you just have a question about this video. Okay, so let's dive right in. The whole entire purpose of doing this technique is to generate faith by impressing the subconscious mind with the idea that we have already obtained our desire. There's plenty of conscious mind techniques that manifest. So if I simply decide something into being, such as I intend to receive a gift this week. I intend to receive a gift. I intend to receive an unexpected gift. I command that into being. I decided and I have faith that God will deliver, or the universe, or the higher mind, the subconscious mind will deliver. So I place my order and then I hand it over to the higher power, i.e. God, and I know it will deliver it to me. I'm not looking for it. I'm not searching for it. I know it's going to come to me. So now Neville's technique is a subconscious mind technique, meaning you would typically use that on a subject where you don't have faith, where you're thinking, nah, I can't let this go. I don't want to hand this over because I don't trust that I could get this thing. It's very important to me and I don't know how else how this would happen, and there's a lot of disbelief. There's a lot of resistance to the idea that it could simply come to you. This is why Neville recommended this technique, because we're bypassing the conscious mind and we are directly impressing the subconscious mind with the idea that we have our desire. So this technique is very, very different than saying an affirmation or commanding something into being during the day. These are not techniques. This is how manifestation works. You place your order, you say what you want, and then the mechanism is going to deliver it to you. But for this to work, faith is required. And by faith, I don't mean the belief that it is definitely going to happen. Faith is a state of mind. It is basically what Neville calls Sabbath. It's the idea that you've done everything you needed to do, which is place the order, and now it's taken care of, and completely yielding to that idea. And that is very, very difficult for anyone that is working that wants to get something where there's a lot of doubt. There's a lot of disbelief that how would this work out? How is this going to work out? There's a lot of emotion attached. There's a lot of internal conflict. So this technique is very different than a mental diet, which is essentially correcting your thoughts throughout the day and reaffirming, realigning your focus to the desired result. This technique is a conscious mind technique, the mental diet, and you will feel that when you do it on a topic where you have a lot of disbelief, a lot of anxiety, a lot of you're not able to generate faith. Essentially, you don't have faith that God, the higher mind, your inner being, the universe can deliver what you want. You will find that it is a struggle and it is not effective. This technique the falling asleep in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, that is a different technique because we are directly impressing the subconscious. We're not arguing with the conscious. The conscious mind is the gatekeeper to the subconscious. So when you, during the day, when you say stuff like, uh, no, I already have this, or no, I intend for this to work out, your conscious mind might pop up and say, no, honey, it's never going to happen, right? It's going to pop up and say, no. So it's not letting your suggestion through to the subconscious mind, because the subconscious can only carry out what you accept as truth. And if you don't think something is true, if you don't believe something is true or plausible, it's not going to happen. It's not going to do it for you. So Neville's technique bypasses this whole conundrum of having to convince your mind of the truth of whatever you're affirming. He asks us to first of all get into a state akin to sleep. Now, what is the state? The right state is a state where you are physically and mentally deeply relaxed. So you're not exhausted, you're not tired. We absolutely cannot be exhausted and tired to do this technique because it requires mental focus and awareness of where your thoughts are going. And when we're tired, what happens is our thoughts, they go somewhere and somewhere else, and then we drift off to sleep and we have no recollection of what we were even thinking about. So it's very important that we are relaxed but not exhausted. And I'm going to give you a quick quote here by Neville. He says, quote, "The great secret is a controlled imagination and a well-sustained attention, firmly and repeatedly focused on the object to be accomplished," end quote. So you can see that what he asks of us here is to have extreme mental focus and persistence. And you're not going to persist. If you're tired, you're going to be like, oh my God, no, this is too difficult. I'm going to fall asleep. Bye. And you're never actually going to do the technique properly. So this state akin to sleep naturally occurs upon waking and right before falling asleep. Now, some people say they have, what I just described, basically they lie down to do the technique and then they drift off to sleep and they haven't even done it yet. So I recommend just going to bed earlier. Go to bed half an hour before your usual time and start doing the technique, and lie down with the intention that you're doing this technique. There's no distraction, no phone, nothing. All of that has to go, and you're not going to let your mind go somewhere else. You have to lie down with the intention that you're going to do this now, and this is your one task, your one goal. So that's the first step, is to get into a relaxed state. The next thing, and this is the most important, this is really the most important thing, this is paramount. The feeling of the wish fulfilled has to be experienced as a fact that is true right now. Not in 10 years, not tomorrow, not in a week. The feeling has to be basically what the technique is. You're going to conjure up the feeling that whatever you want is now true. It's now happened. You are now this person, or you now have this thing. You're now in this reality where your desire has been given to you. And you're now the person that is living the reality of having obtained your wish. And your rational mind is going to think this is not true. And that is perfectly fine. I would be worried if you started thinking that you have this thing that you don't actually have. This is not what Neville means. It's not about delusion. You will know intellectually, I don't have it. Absolutely not. And I'm not this person. Absolutely not. But your felt experience says, I have it, I have it, I am it, I am it. And there's a big difference. So we're not trying to convince our conscious mind that something is true, or our analytical mind that this is true. We're not arguing with facts and arguments and all of that logic. We're not doing that. We're using feeling and auto suggestion to create that feeling, and then replay that feeling until it feels true, and then we're going to drift off to sleep. So let me just briefly explain how to do this. So as I said, the wish has to be experienced as fulfilled in the present moment, i.e. right now as I'm talking. So to do this, Neville suggests to choose an anchor, and this can be a brief scene. He likes to use a single act scene, like someone shaking your hand, someone hugging you, something that feels visceral and that would naturally occur after you've received your desire. So you don't have to think too much about it. You would simply get into a scenario that implies that that gives you that feeling. Don't worry if you're picking the correct scene. Don't worry that your scene is wrong. It doesn't matter what you do essentially in your imagination, as long as this language, this expression, this inner experience that you're creating is evoking the feeling that you have received your desire and it is done. You are this person right now. So a scene is one way to do this, a brief scene. Another way of doing this is to say an affirmation, say a statement like, it worked, it's done. This is you want to play around with this and find something that works for you, because the most important thing about this whole technique is living in that feeling, taking in that feeling of the wish fulfilled, not in a hypothetical way, not in a what if way, what if this came true, but in the present moment. And this is where you really have to become aware of your state. Are you thinking of getting your desire, i.e., are you getting very excited? Because excitement is not the wish fulfilled. Excitement is I'm outside of what I want and I'm looking in, and what I'm seeing is very exciting to me, because the prospect of having that is what's creating the excitement. The actual having of it does not. Having feels very different to that. So are you thinking of it, or are you thinking from it? Thinking from is experiencing the feeling of having it, of being it right now. What does that feel like? What does it feel like to have achieved what I wanted to achieve? Now that it is true that I have X, Y, and Z, how do I feel? And whatever feeling you then come up with, that is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. So you want to play around with different imaginal cues that can pull you into that feeling. And it should feel very satisfying and true. It should feel true. Eventually, you want to get deeper and deeper into this feeling and create an experience of nowness. So it has to feel like this is happening right now, that the experience of feeling that it is true has to happen right now. Meaning you want to relate that, this is a trick that I do, is I relate this event to my present moment, which is me lying in my bed. I'm thinking to myself, I'm now lying in my bed, and I'm aware of the fact that I have X, Y, and Z, or that I am X, Y, and Z. And I'm bringing it into the present moment to where I am right now. So I'm not thinking in 10 years. I'm not thinking tomorrow. I'm not doing any of that. I'm bringing this feeling to me in the present moment. The feeling of nowness, the feeling of present tenseness. I'm sorry if that's not a word, but I know it's not a word. That is what creates eventually the feeling of truth. Yeah, this is true. You know it's not true. Intellectually, you know, no, I don't have this. No, I'm not this person, but it feels true. And that is what you want to aim for. When you have that feeling of truth, you're going to feel a resonance through your body that this is true. and it will become easy to loop it and sustain it. And then once you can loop that and keep, saturating yourself with it, you can drop the cue, whatever you're using, the scene or the phrase, you can stop doing it, because that takes a lot of mental activity. And when you're trying to sleep, we want to reduce that mental activity so we can actually drift off to sleep. You want to then drop that cue and hold on to that feeling and drift off to sleep in that feeling. Now, there's a couple of very important things to note. First of all, as I already mentioned briefly, the feeling of the wish fulfilled is not excitement. Likewise, you don't ever want to, when you're doing this, I mean, it's fine if you do, but you want to avoid falling into a daydream. You don't want to start fantasizing. Oh my God, it would be so amazing if blah, blah, blah played out. It would be fantastic if I got this. This is not the wish fulfilled. This is, again, thinking of it. We want to think from it, feel from that state, feel from the position of, I am the person that has X, Y, and Z. And it's true now that I have it. And that is all that needs to happen. And I'm saying that I'm not saying this lightly, because it is not an easy task. But you will get the hang of it 100%. Moreover, you want to do this technique with the assumption that the fact that you're doing this means that your subconscious is taking your order and carrying it out. You don't want to think, oh, have I done this correctly? Has it been impressed? You want to do this with the naive faith that I'm doing this technique because I know it works. I'm doing this technique and I know by doing it, something is happening that will create my desire. You don't want to sit there questioning, oh, have I done this correctly? Is this working? Am I doing this wrong? Have I picked the wrong scene? Have I picked the wrong phrase? That needs to all stop. And each time your thoughts go into this direction, you want to bring them back and stay with whatever anchor you've chosen to pull you into that feeling. And you really only have one task, which is to stay with that feeling. And each time your attention goes somewhere else, you bring it back. You bring it back. You bring it back. Bring it back to your anchor. Neville recommends doing this technique every day until you have what you desire. And the more you do this, you will find your subconscious is being reprogrammed. Because it is receiving the impression, and what happens is your thoughts during the day are going to change to be in line with that result that you've impressed. You might find that all of a sudden you're no longer worried about whatever topic you've been thinking about. You're no longer worried about losing it. That's the number one thing, is you're no longer afraid that you're losing an opportunity, missing out on something, or not getting this. You're no longer scared of not getting it because you already have it. When it's been done successfully, you will have a feeling that, like I just explained, you're no longer concerned with it. You're no longer afraid of whatever anxieties you had around this topic. You're no longer scared of being without it. You're okay to be without whatever you want. And that is because you've impressed your subconscious with the idea that you have it. You might have the feeling that it is done, as in it's been taken care of. God is taking care of this, and you've done everything you needed to do. There's nothing left to do. You can relax. You're relaxed. You understand that it will be delivered to you. You don't have to look for it, search for it, worry about it. It will come to you at the perfect time. And you will take zero action to consciously force it into your life. You're not taking an action to bring it about. You're not thinking, if I go down this street and I go around this corner and I go to this coffee shop, I'm going to bump into my boss and then we can talk about the promotion. You're not going to think that way. You will be deeply relaxed about this whole entire thing. it might not even be that extreme. You could simply feel a subtle shift into a towards a more positive and neutral position. So this kind of state, which is essentially a state of non-seeking, it's a state of having. It's the same state basically. A state of non-seeking or a state of having, different ways of phrasing it, but it's a state where your desire, this terrible feeling of I don't have it, what can I do to get it? That feeling is completely absent. And it might take a while to get there. It might happen in incremental steps, but it could also happen in one session. But every time you notice you're falling back into a seeking state, you don't want to think, oh my God, I'm doing this totally wrong. Don't panic. Don't think, oh my God, like it was completely for nothing. No, it was not, because it is a process and you've started it. So that's fantastic. And if you persist in this, you're going to find that you will find that you're changing, and it is a very pleasant experience. When you fall back into a seeking state after doing this technique, it's likely that the subconscious has not been fully impressed with the suggestion. So you just keep at it, keep doing it. And now at the end, I want to just briefly touch upon a couple of things. A viewer asked me if what they're imagining, if it should feel natural. And the answer is no, it will not feel natural. So the first couple of times you do this, if you've been in this state, I don't have it, how can I get it? This is your routine state. Now all of a sudden you go to I have it. That feeling is completely out of the norm, and it's not going to feel normal. It will feel strange and difficult. It might feel very difficult to experience that feeling, because in order to experience that, you will have to rearrange. You're essentially rearranging the perspective from which you're looking at the subject. You're relating to yourself differently than you were before, which means it's not going to feel normal to you to associate with yourself like that. But the more you practice it, the more normal and habitual it becomes. Again, this is a subconscious mind technique. This is not a conscious mind technique. You're not battling with your mind. You're not trying to convince yourself that this is true. You're simply trying to, what you're doing is you're conjuring up the felt experience of it's true right now. And that is a completely different thing than trying to argue your way, than trying to convince yourself of something. You're not convincing yourself of it. You're playing. You're pretending. You're doing something completely different. Another thing I wanted to mention is, after doing this technique, you might experience a few strange things. And one is nightmares. And I wouldn't put too much meaning into this or emphasis on this, but it can happen. In my experience, it is a very good sign that your subconscious is responding to your suggestion. And by nightmare, I don't mean your like average dream on the subject. Like, let's say you always have a dream that your boss is mean to you and they say, no, you will never get the promotion. I'm going to fire you, whatever, right? You're never going to get the promotion. So-and-so was better. So-and-so is always better. So if that's your baseline dream, then a nightmare is not that dream. A nightmare would literally be the worst case, like just something horrible, like awful, like, oh my God, like you got fired, or just the worst thing, like you don't want this to happen. And that is a very good sign that you're actually impressing your subconscious successfully. And I've had this happen many times where even right before the thing manifested, I had a nightmare and I thought, I can't, why am I having this nightmare? But you just don't put any meaning into it other than, yeah, it's working. It's a very good sign. And persist in the feeling that it is done. Essentially, what this technique is going to do over time, it will move you from, I don't have it, how can I get it? into a very pleasant state where your previous worries and fears they no longer exist. You're no longer terrified of what if my colleague gets the promotion. You're not scared. This anxiety is gone. You're no longer thinking, well, what if they're better than me? You might start thinking, it's fine that they're better than me. I totally want that they get the promotion. You might have thoughts like that because you are untouchable in your position that you have it. Nothing and no one can take it from you. So you can tell if it's working by whether or not your state is shifting. You will know that you've not done it successfully when your state is not changing over time. I would then reassess if I'm actually feeling the feeling of the wish fulfilled in the present moment. And in my personal experience, this technique, impressing the subconscious like that, and especially falling asleep in that state. And you, by the way, you don't have to sleep for 8 hours. It's enough to sleep for a second. It's the important thing is taking it with you into the realm of sleep. It doesn't matter how long you're asleep. But in my personal experience, doing this technique and doing it properly, it will have an extremely fast effect on you. So at the end of this video, I'd just like to give you a personal example of how, like, something I manifested using this technique. I wanted to meet someone I hadn't seen in over 2.5 years. And we have no mutual friends, nothing like that. It's just one of those things. So 2.5 years, I've not seen this person, and we live in the same place. And I was convinced that it was completely possible for us to meet because I'd done it before. And also that they wanted to see me and that it was fine. It was okay for us to, like, there was no bad feelings or anything. I was at that point. But at this point, I then kept looking for it because I was like, okay, I know this is true. I know this is possible. So where is it? Why is this not working? Why isn't it showing up? I know I can have it. Why isn't it here? And at that point, I decided I'm going to switch this whole thing and try this technique. And I did. And I imagined falling. I conjured up. I asked myself, how would I feel if we had met? What kind of thing would I be thinking? How would I feel if this was happening right in the second? And I thought I would feel like, oh my God, yes, finally there's some movement here. Finally something is happening. Finally I have my power back. Like, it's working. Wow. That is the kind of experience that I conjured up. And I kept looping it and looping it until I really felt it's true. It's true. It's true. It's amazing. We've met, and it's even better than imagined. And I felt this feeling of accomplishment and truth. And I fell asleep in that. And the orchestration started literally the next day. It didn't come in one, like, chunk. Like, it didn't come in one delivery. Before I got the encounter, which happened 2 weeks later, I got glimpses of this person. They popped up in my reality. They literally ran past me while I was on my bike on my way to work. And then not much later, I met the person in the most ridiculous orchestration. And it was nothing that I could have conjured up consciously. So I highly, highly recommend this technique if you've used it. I'm curious to hear about your experience. Any questions, leave them down below. I wish you a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.